Attackers can upload, download, or manipulate data, applications, and configurations on their own system. So once they have ownership, a lot of problems can ensue from there, especially if they've been there a while. It causes a lot of, can you imagine if you're a software company and you've been owned by China for 10 years, or even all you can go back and say is, well, I know they've been here for a year, but that's all we know. Imagine the repercussions that will stem from that. Who have you sold software to in the last year, right? And say you're a Fortune 500, and you've got to go to those companies and say, sorry, we've been owned for the last year and there's been backdoors. Man, can you imagine that? Can you see how serious security is for a problem? For just a small software vendor, right? Maybe you don't care. Maybe, you're like, well, we didn't say that it was free from defect, right? But then they're still going to sue you. So you're still going to have to be dealing with a lot of fallout. So security is an important thing. So you have to do what's called due diligence, which we'll get into that and talk about that later. So attackers use the compromised systems to launch further attacks. So they could be into other organizations in the case of a software company, or other systems that you own on your own network. So clearing your tracks. Covering your tracks refers to activities carried out by an attacker to hide malicious attacks. So first of all, we've done the recon, we've done the scanning, we've gained access to a system, now we've installed persistent access, and now we want to go ahead and clear our tracks, right? So we want to hide the malicious acts that we've done so far so that people can't tell what we did, when we did, or how long we've been doing it. So the attacker's intentions include continuing access. We talked about persistence. And then we talked about unnoticed and uncaught. So we don't want to raise our posture of getting caught by leaving stuff in the logs. One night on the weekend, a security engineer happens to be drinking at home, and he's like, hey, let's go check out the logs, and we're going to be just kind of trolling our logs or something, right? I'm not promoting doing that while you're drinking. I'm just saying this is something that's not uncommon. And then all of a sudden he notices, uh-oh, that doesn't look right. But it never got caught before. It didn't get caught by the SIM, didn't get caught in previous trolling, but now all of a sudden he's caught it. So now he's on to you. So you want to erase that kind of stuff from the logs when you're an attacker. They do this routinely. That's one of the first things they'll do. And then that's why we're going to get into log shipping and stuff like that later. You want to take a copy of your logs, or there's ways you can do it. It's shipping, you do it, you log in batches, and then you ship those batches off, or you can log and then have a transactional log. So when you're shipping it off over here, it's a dead drop. It's only a one-way write. Nobody can get in there and delete that stuff, right? Then you've got a back channel to access that. Hopefully that's secured very well. Then you can have an unadulterated log. So that prevents this kind of thing of clearing the tracks, right? So we're talking about offensive strategies and defensive strategies, okay? So we're talking about both sides of the fence here. The attacker overwrites a server, system logs, applications to avoid suspicion. It's not really suspicion, it's detection, period, right? So, but for the test, we overwrite logs to avoid suspicion, okay? And attackers always cover their tracks to hide their identity. So this is one way that they'll cover their tracks to hide what they did. It doesn't necessarily or unnecessarily hide their identity, right? So this is a little bit, I have a lot of problems with the stuff in these slides, so I tend to call them out. My apologies for that. It irritates me when they do this kind of stuff, but it's not necessarily hiding their identity. They're just trying to cover their tracks of what they did, right? They may or may not care about their identity. So usually they're many hops away from the system. They're not directly accessing it from that last hop. So for example, if I'm accessing this from my office or my home office at home, so I'm accessing this from home, I'm not going to break into the system from my house and then you can directly come back to my house. That's not what people do. They're many, many hops away, including other countries. So good luck getting warrants for that. It's difficult for them to do, for people that know what they're doing, right? So the hops where they're coming from are not so important. They may let you know that. They may not hide that at all. But what they do hide is what they're doing in the system. So I may leave a trail of log data that's going to take you on a wild goose chase too. So you want to validate, don't get too excited, just work the problem, work the problem. What are they telling you? What are they not telling you? That kind of stuff. so it's not uncommon to find false log entries as well.